Winner in life. The coin toss, I'm Coinbase. Basically cryptocurrency Scarface.
Hey guys, it's Sebastian from Creator Capitalist, and today we're going to talk about Nas.
My next guest, one of the best rappers of all time.
To mainstream media, he's known as one of the greatest rappers of all time.
I got a list. Here's the order on my list, and it goes.
What you might not know is that he also invests in startups and he has a pretty good track record. In today's video, we're going to look at 5 of his best investments and then 5 lessons we can learn from this. As always, there's going to be a chapters tool down below if you need to skip to the next deal or skip to the next part. Big favor from you guys is to give this a thumbs up and to subscribe if you like stuff like this. For all of these investments, he does it through QueensBridge Venture Partners. The funny thing is that if you go to his site, it doesn't actually show anything, which is not that surprising and pretty consistent for other venture firms. Pretty much just an image that doesn't really help us, but there is another resource and it's called Crunchbase. So going to Crunchbase, we can pretty much see everything that we want to know about this firm and what they've invested in. We can see that they're based out of LA, that they've done 128 deals, and it was founded in 2014. Interestingly enough, a lot of the best deals that we're going to talk about today are from 2014. They're considered a micro VC, so they likely invest something like $100,000 to $500,000 per investment. If we do the quick math here, on the low end, they've probably deployed about $12.8 million, and then on the high end, about $64 million. I question how accurate this list is, but his net worth in 2014 was about $20 million. Either way, it seems like he put a sizable amount of money of his net worth into startups, and he's pretty bullish on the space. And spoilers, it's probably one of the best moves he's made. Running down the list, let's start off with the elephant in the room, and this is going to be Coinbase. If you don't know what Coinbase is, it's one of the easiest ways to buy and sell cryptocurrency. On a quick side note and also a plug, if you are someone that wants to get started with Coinbase, you can get $10 in free Bitcoin by opening an account and buying or selling at least $100 in cryptocurrency. So this $10 offer is a bit better than the $5 offer that they have on their main website. So $5 one is from their site and $10 link will be down below in the description box. In 2013, QueensBridge Venture Partners invested in the Series B of Coinbase. He was part of the $20 million raised and the lead investor was Andreessen Horowitz. If you're someone outside of the space, Andreessen Horowitz is one of the best firms in the business and they have a pretty strong crypto arm. More on them in a second. So for the Series B, it was $25 million, but we don't know what the cap is, so what the valuation was at that point. Generally though, for Series Bs, you're selling about 20% of the company. So 25 times 5, give or take, is going to be $125 million valuation. I actually ended up finding an article from Complex and apparently the valuation was $143 million. So we were pretty close, but we'll use the 143 because that's the stated one. Also, it looks like QueensBridge does make investments between $100,000 and $500,000 according to the co-founder. CoinDesk estimates that QueensBridge could own almost 100,000 shares on the low end and then on the high end, about 500,000 shares. Like I mentioned, the round was led by Andreessen Horowitz, and the reason this matters is because Ben Horowitz, one of the founders of the firm, is a very big fan of rap. Pretty sure I can't play too much of this without it getting flagged, but you have Ben Horowitz here along with Nas rapping. They've done speaking sessions together, and I wouldn't be surprised that they're actually friends.
How do I know Ben Horowitz and why are we friends?
So given that A16Z led the round, I wouldn't be surprised if Ben Horowitz convinced Nas to invest first off and also carved out even $500,000 in room for him, given that he wanted to help him out. To a lot of people, Coinbase was one of those no-brainer deals that had a lot of upside. It could have still failed, but it was something that seemed very logical, something like Pipe or something like Stripe. Even if you consider the fact that Coinbase has traded down, he's still up substantially. As of filming, the absolute floor is going to be $256. $256,000 times 496,000 shares, that's $127 million. Even if he only put in $100,000 instead of the $500,000, that's still about $25 million. He basically 250x'd his money, and putting it into normal people terms, mortal terms, that's like putting in $1,000 and coming back out with $250,000. Nas isn't just a one-hit wonder though. There's 4 other ones that we still need to talk about. Rewinding it back to 2014, QueensBridge Venture invested in Ring in their Series A. The round was led by True Ventures, and you can see QueensBridge right here. If you're someone who's not familiar with Ring, it's a security system and they have a lot of different tools. So as of right now, they have alarms, they have security cameras, other accessories, smart lighting, but back in the day, what they were known for was for their video doorbells. The reason Ring might also sound familiar is because they were on Shark Tank and the sharks ended up turning them down. So back then on Shark Tank, they were a different name, Doorbot.
I'm seeking $700,000 for a 10% stake in the company.
So that's a $7 million valuation. When Nas ended up investing at the Series A, it was about 22 million. So 4.5 million raised times 5 is going to be 22.5 valuation. The numbers might be a little bit off, but either way, it's nothing to scoff at, getting 40 million back for investing $100,000 to $500,000. And as a reminder, the 40 million number that we're using for Ring is based off articles. On a side note, if you're someone that wants to get started with this, if you want to get your feet wet, then I'd recommend checking out Republic. One of the big benefits is that they're open to non-accredited, so normal people who might not want to invest $100,000 at a time. The other major benefit, and the reason I really like them, is that they do a lot of due diligence. So they only let less than 1% of startups onto their platform. So for example, if you're looking for a crypto startup, Linen might be an interesting one. If you're into physical products and one that's been on Shark Tank, then it might make sense to look into Genius Juice. If you want to check out Republic, I'll put a link down below, one of the easiest ways to get started and also to support the channel. The crazy and also kind of hilarious thing is that this is not the first startup that Nas has invested in that got acquired by Amazon. In 2018, they also bought PillPack for $1 billion. PillPack is a full-service pharmacy, and the idea is that they simplify the process. So they have these packages, they tell you what it is, and exactly what time you need to take it. I'm pretty lucky that I'm in good health, but for other people who need to take a lot of different medications, it can get pretty complicated. For a lot of older people in particular, it's easy to forget which pills you haven't taken. So you might have something that has multiple different days. Maybe you have it by hour, so Monday morning, and it just gets a lot more complicated than you would want. So on the surface, it sounds pretty simple because it's just packages, but the fact that they're a full-service pharmacy means that Amazon now has a pharmacy. The crazy thing about PillPack is that it was part of Techstars Boston. So this was a startup accelerator in Boston, and the funny thing was that they were a batch before Mandy was there as an associate. Nas invested in the company during the Series B, and my estimate is about a $44 million valuation. If we factor in dilution, that's about 14x back. So of a $100,000 check, he bought about 0.227% of the company. That ended up turning into $1.4 million. On the high end, if he put in $500,000, then that turned into $7 million. There is quite a bit of guesstimation here because none of this is really public, and a lot of this is basically going off what is standard for the industry. Moving on to number 4, we have Lyft, and this one's pretty interesting because it is a later deal. So Lyft is a ride-sharing company similar to Uber, but focused mostly on that ride-sharing bit. QueensBridge ended up investing in the Series D when it was valued at $2 billion. They did end up raising an E, F, G, H, and I afterwards, but dilution ends up being a little bit different the later stages you go. So for something like A and B, it ends up being about 20% of your company, but the farther you go, it ends up dropping quite a bit. So for example, for the H, it was about 4% of the company. So he invested at the $2 billion valuation. They IPO'd for $20 billion, so about 10x back before dilution. If we do some rough math for the dilution, he basically 6x'd back. One that I haven't heard of until I started this video is Pluto TV. Pluto allows you to watch hundreds of channels and thousands of movies for free. Unlike Netflix, you don't have to sign up, you don't have bills, and there's no contracts. So my guess is that it's kind of similar to YouTube in that it's based off ads. This was acquired by Viacom in 2019 for $340 million. So this was a smaller number than the ones that we talked about previously, but it depends on when he got in the deal. So QueensBridge got in at the Series A when they raised $13 million, and the likely value was about $60 million. Doing the rough math, he basically 5x'd his money, and if you factor in some dilution, probably about 3.5, maybe 4x back. So this does seem a lot smaller, especially if you compare it to something like Coinbase, but for most venture investors, something like 3x or 4x back is pretty good. For my research, these are the 5 best investments that have been acquired or gone public. He does have a lot of other deals that are still in progress, I guess, and we'll see what happens there. A really good example of this is Away, where he was in the seed round. So the seed round is before the Series A and it's one of the earliest rounds, so he was one of the earliest investors. They raised $2.5 million, and my guess is the valuation was about $12.5 million. Away was last valued at $1.4 billion. So he's looking to 100x on Away, assuming he has an exit, and that's before factoring dilution. So what can we learn from all of this, and what are the key takeaways? Number 1 is that unlike dividend investing and a lot of other types of investing, home runs play a very big role. Coinbase made 261x back on his money. This means that it returned his entire portfolio, and even if all the other investments failed, he would still come out ahead. Of these 5, even if you look at the smallest one of Pluto, I think most people would be very happy 4xing their money, and I would argue that's not very common. Number 2 is that you have to have a lot of patience for venture returns. It's not something that happens overnight. So back to that Coinbase number, it looks really good, but it took a lot of time. He invested in 2013 and they didn't go public until this year, 2021. It took 8 years. For something like Ring, he invested in the Series A in 2014, but it wasn't acquired until 2018. Same thing with PillPack, 2014, 2018, so that's 4 years. Even Lyft, where he got in relatively late at the Series D, it still took 5 years. 2014 invested, exited in 2019. Pluto, where he got in the earliest at the seed round, 2014, exited in 2019, so 5 years. Takeaway number 3 is that if you're looking to get into this, you want to diversify. That doesn't mean you want to spray and pray. That's pretty much the opposite of it, but you don't want to put all of your eggs into only one basket. We're obviously looking at the home runs, but there's also going to be a lot of write-offs. As of filming, the team made 128 investments and they've had 38 exits. Of those exits, not all of them return money. Maybe some of them return 50 cents on the dollar. Fred Wilson, who's a legendary VC in New York who runs Union Square Ventures, has a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 rule. Basically, 1/3 or 33% of your companies that you invest in are going to go to zero. 1/3 are going to return money and maybe make you a little bit more. The final third are going to be the ones where you make your money from and the ones that matter the most. With startup investing, you need to be comfortable with some losses. You need to be comfortable missing some shots and not hitting some baseballs. I know a lot of real estate people and especially dividend people are very against that, and I think that's fine. It just depends on your risk tolerance. Number 4 is to leverage your expertise. So for him, he's leveraging his brand and his knowledge of different other spaces. For you, you can do the same thing. If you're someone who's a dentist, you're going to have some knowledge and expertise that other people might not. So for example, let's say you make mouth guards for people who grind their teeth in their sleep. So back in the day, maybe you did 800 of these and now you're only doing 600. Maybe there's some macroeconomic factors there as well, but is it because there's something else? Is it because people are using online services that might be a bit cheaper? You could buy all of them and see which one's competitive, and maybe one of them is raising money. Number 5 is to leverage others and also online tools. So you have to factor in that Nas does have a team behind him. So for Coinbase, it was led by him directly due to his relationships. For Lyft and Ring, there wasn't a partner listed. For Pluto as well as PillPack, the investment was led by Rashawn Williams. If you're a content creator, maybe talk to other creators doing the same thing and share deal flow. If you're investing a smaller amount, let's say $100 to $1,000, then leverage the platforms out there that make it easier for you. Platforms like Republic do a lot of vetting for you. It doesn't mean that the companies are going to succeed necessarily, but it removes the risk of fraud and the ones that are outright bad. Again, if you want to check out Republic, I'll leave a link down below. My question for you guys is, of these 5 investments, if you had that opportunity at that stage, which ones would you have invested in? To be completely honest, I don't think I would have invested in Ring. Let me know and everyone else know in the comments down below. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. It really helps us out. If you know anyone else who'd benefit, then share this with them. I'll probably help them out, but otherwise, hope you guys liked it. See you guys next time.